Hi everybody. What you're looking at is two things we've already done. We have graphed equations that look like this. This is called slope-intercept form. 3 is the slope, y is the intercept, and I'll talk more about that in a few minutes. So we made tables. I gave you these x numbers and I picked them so they would fit on the graph. We talked about things where you notice maybe a gap right there. Well, that's because I did not pick -1 for x. If I did, it would fill in that point right there. And we put the input number in for x. We calculated. We got output numbers. And they should have lined up. So we practiced that. Then we learned how to find slope from a line on a graph. We just drew our step above or below the line. Didn't matter. We counted the blocks. I have 5 as my vertical change, 3 is my horizontal change, and slope, and I'll write that here, is rise over run, and that would be 5 over 3, but since the line is falling down, we always look for that, that's a negative slope. But hey, let's look back over here for a second. I want you to see something. If you look at these points, if I go from here to here, I go up 3 over 1. Up 3? Do you think that's a coincidence? It's not. And that 1 is not from the slope. Look where it goes through the y-axis. That right there is 1. You see that? So what we're going to do is learn how to graph using the two numbers in the equation. So let's just get started here. The two numbers are the slope and the y-intercept. And you can see these are the notes, and I have that up here, a little bit of information at the top. So it's a two-step process today. Step 1, you're going to graph the y-intercept on the y-axis. And if you're wondering what's that mean, well, first let's identify. 2 is the slope, 1 is the y-intercept. Okay, so when we go to graph this, we're just going to use these two numbers. The y-intercept is 1, so you will graph the y-intercept first. Now, some people will put that on the x-axis. But think about it. It's called the y-intercept. So we will graph that on the y-axis. That's common mistake number 1. And I think people do that because when we graph points, we seem to move on the x-axis first. But this is different. Okay, so we just graphed the y-intercept. Now we use the slope to get other points. How do we do that? Well, slope should be a fraction, right? Rise over run. There it is at the top of the paper. But my slope's a whole number. Well, a whole number, you can just put over 1. I can do that here too. So my slope now is rise 2, run 1. Now, I do that from here. Don't go back to the origin. That's common mistake too, because when we graph points, we always seem to go to the origin. So, from the top, you graph the y-intercept. It's really just that number on the end. And you look at your slope, and that tells you where to go. Up 2, rise 2, run 1. Now, I can do that again if I wanted. I could even go back the other way if I wanted to. It doesn't matter. You don't need all these points. You just need 2 points. You must draw that line and put arrows on it. Don't just leave points on the graph. Okay? So that's essentially it. We'll practice a couple, and then the video, yes, will finally end, right? So over here, the y-intercept is always this number on the end, and I can circle that over here too. These will be the notes. Include that negative sign with it. That's important. Now the slope is already a fraction. Now that negative sign's in the middle. I'm going to place it up there with the 2. I always move it up to the numerator, and I'll show you why. So let's go back. Graph the y-intercept. -2 on the y-axis. I'm done with that number now. That's all it does. It tells me where the line cuts through the y-axis. That's his job in life. Now slope is going to tell me where to go from here. Now since that's a negative slope, I'm going to drop down 2, then run 3. So although rise sounds like you're going up, if it's negative, it has to angle down like that. Again, you can put another point or 2 on the line if you want. Some people like to, some are fine with just 2. Okay, we'll try 2 more. I actually have 4 more. Maybe you can try to. Okay, so look, I try to show you some different things here. Like there is no y-intercept. If you don't see a y-intercept, you put a 0 out there. So that one's going to go right through the origin. That's called a proportional equation. Slope clearly labeled, that's 1/2. So again, start where the y-intercept is, 0. Now read your slope. It's positive. Rise 1, run 2. Rise 1, run 2. And I'll do that again. Rise 1, run 2, and draw your line. It's a lot faster than making tables and doing all that calculation, isn't it? Okay, number 4, I picked this one because of that negative x. So the y-intercept, nothing much to debate there. Okay, here, there's no number in front of x, but some of you know there is a number there, right? There's a 1. So that slope is actually a -1. But wait, we need slope to be a fraction. Then put it over 1. This slope is -1 over 1. Okay, so it's a little more involved because you don't actually see it. But now everything's the same. Go to the y-intercept on the y-axis. Hold your pencil there and read your slope. Down 1, see, fall, it's a negative. Down 1, right 1. Down 1, right 1. And so that's just a little diagonal, these corner to corners. So I can put as many as I want on there. That's a slope of -1. And connect. Okay, I really suggest you pause the video and maybe try these, or at least think about them a little bit. Then we'll do them and we'll stop. Okay, so number 5, I'll move the negative up to the 3 when I write the slope over here. As long as it's there. The y-intercept is still a -2. Go to -2. Down 3 to the right 4. See, notice my negatives, the equations have a negative slope, tilt down. These two. Positive slope, angles up. You should always look for that. I try to mention that frequently. And the last one, 1 is my y-intercept. -2 is my slope. Remember, slope has to be a fraction. So just put a whole number over 1. Go to 1 on the y-axis. Down 2, right 1. Down 2, right 1. And I'll go again. And connect. Okay, that's the skill that we're going to practice. Give it your best and let me know if you have any questions.